It seems that every so often I run into an ATV I simply can't get rid of. An ATV that, despite the fact it's been tested a number of times already, is back for one more kick at the cat, so to speak. That's what's going on with Arctic Cat's 450 EFI today. I've tested a number of 450s in the past, both their larger American-built chassis and the smaller Kimco-based 450s like this one. There is a light at the end of the tunnel here for me though. Oftentimes, testing a vehicle I have previous experience with gives me a great baseline for changes or improvements made, or for how it stacks up against other vehicles in its class. Arctic Cat's tried and true 450 EFI has actually impressed us in a number of ways. Its double A-arm front and rear suspension setups are preload adjustable only and provide a decent 7 inches of front and rear travel. Unfortunately, like their larger counterparts, these small chassis don't include a rear sway bar. Fortunately, unlike the larger cats that have their suspension settings really stiff and the suspension jacked way up, these smaller chassis actually ride fairly plush. After some significant seat time on this vehicle, I have found it to be smoothest in the first 4 inches of its travel, then gets stiffer quite quickly as the suspension compresses. Despite its smaller stature, the 450 EFI has man-sized ground clearance. This really makes it stand out when crawling rocks or slinging mud. The vehicle feels small for a larger rider, but even the largest guy will be impressed with where it can go. At the end of the day, most test riders prefer the suspension settings of the smaller chassis Arctic Cats to the larger ones. However, we still believe Arctic needs to add a sway bar to both vehicles, which would allow them to soften the suspension settings even further. Under the hood, the 450 EFI is packing a liquid-cooled 443cc 4-valve EFI mill. As a 450, this engine is actually quite good. It's smooth and has got excellent bottom end pull. EFI makes for easy starting and smooth operation in any condition. What's confusing is that in 2013, Arctic Cat has rebadged their larger chassis 450 and called it a 500 EFI. Luckily, we feel this motor has enough jam to hold its own against most of its 500cc competition, but this move leaves this smaller ride as their only 450 class entry. The vehicle we're testing today is a base model without any fancy wheels or bumpers. It has nice wide fenders that keep you clean when the trail gets muddy, a decent digital gauge package, shift-on-the-fly 4x4, and one seriously underrated feature, a 2-inch hitch receiver. Other than that, the 450 EFI is lacking in the bling department. The suggested retail for this ride puts it on the low end of the price ladder, which adds to its value quotient in this class. Two things we've always really liked about full-size Arctic Cat ATVs are their transmission and their clutching. These are things a rider will immediately notice as either good or bad. They're also two things Arctic Cat has gotten very right with their smaller ATVs. The second thing any rider will touch on a new ATV is the transmission. Once you climb on and start it up, you have to shift it into gear. Many ATVs have notchy, difficult to shift transmissions with overly complicated shift gates. Arctic Cat has engineered a transmission that can literally be shifted with one finger. It travels in a nearly linear forward and back direction with only mild gating between high and low and neutral and reverse. When it comes to transmissions, this one is among the best in the industry. Same goes for its CVT clutching. Once in gear, the 450 engages without a hint of lurching. It holds low gear very well when you need that extra grunt and seems to keep the motor at its peak RPM as it winds out on top end, which, by the way, is way higher than we expected it to be. Little details like the transmission and clutching go a long way for a new rider or somebody buying an ATV for its simplicity. And we feel these are the types of riders that are best suited to Arctic Cat's 450. This ATV isn't going to get a big bore rider's pulse pounding in any way, and it's not going to win any fancy bolt-on contests. But for a new rider looking for an affordable, reliable ATV that won't be intimidating to ride or difficult to use, the 450 EFI is really a great choice.